With August in the books, we saw the biggest change to the Valorant meta so far with the introduction of Act 2. As we all know now, Act 2 introduced tech-based agent Killjoy, as well as a new game mode, free-for-all deathmatch. How do the agents stack up now? Who's the best of the best? What's up, guys? It's Sam here for Top Viral Gaming, and today we're putting all Valorant agents in our tier rankings. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications by clicking or tapping that bell. For these rankings, we'll be taking into account how easy an agent is to master, how dominant their powers prove to be, and how often they're picked in professional Valorant tournaments. I'm sure you guys have seen other videos like this in the past where we take each agent and put them in different tiers. At the very bottom, we have tier D. Spoiler alert, for this video, we won't be placing any agents in this tier. It being our first video like this and all, we're trying to keep it mostly positive. But who knows? Maybe in the future, we may find some agents in this tier. After that, we have tier C. These are for the weaker agents of the bunch. Next, we have B. These agents are good, but not the best. This is followed by the A tier. Now, these agents are great, and we highly recommend playing as these ones. And finally, we have the S tier. These agents are the best of the best and do more than enough to stand out from the rest. With that, let's get right into it. The first agent we're going to look at is Breech. Breech's abilities are very, very powerful, but in a meta that heavily favors operator users, his flashes are a little too difficult to use across long angles, as if to set them up through map geometry. However, if you want to push onto a site using shorter angles, then Breech is virtually unrivaled. His range of lethal attacks, flashes, and disruptor abilities can make life for corner campers very unpleasant, either eliminating them outright, making them powerless when you push, or forcing them out into the open. Breech's kit is versatile for practically any scenario, and they work well as both supporting abilities and for direct fights. Going back to his flashes, Breech's flashpoint ability is in most scenarios the best flash utility in the game, and will provide a quick but lasting flash effect that's easy to set up in close quarter fights. Breech's fault line signature ability isn't quite a flash, but it does disorient, slow, and even hinder the rate of fire for any players caught in its area of effect. This effectively makes them useless. In many ways, it's better than Flashpoint, so when you roll the two together, it's easy to see why Breech is so strong at set play scenarios. For these reasons, we're going to put him in the B tier. He's quite good, but there's not enough to put him in the A tier. Next, let's take a look at Brimstone. Brimstone might be a boring agent to play, but nobody opens up the attacking playbook quite like him. Being able to drop long-lasting smokes without a line of sight right at the start of the round is unparalleled when it comes to rushing onto the site. This utility aside, Brimstone's Molotov is also incredibly powerful for denying plants or stopping defenders from defusing the spike. Its high damage and area of effect can eat up enough time for you to rotate to a new angle or close out the tense final seconds of a round. Likewise, Brimstone's ult is a very effective means of clearing out choke points and keeping defenders away from the spike. As smokes become more and more prevalent, in large part because of Cypher's popularity, Brimstone's value is only increased. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have our first S-tier agent. We're just 2 agents in and we're already putting someone in that S tier. Next up, let's dissect Cipher. Cipher gets stronger almost every day. With more angles and placements for his abilities being discovered every week, Cipher's one of the most viable agents in the game. He's good for information gathering due to his spy cam, trapwires, and ultimate ability, neutral theft. Cipher's camera can be used to cover large areas, and on maps like Haven, where there are 3 spike plant sites, it is especially useful for working out enemy plays. Top-tier Valorant players are realizing that having a team spread out across the map isn't ideal, and traveling in packs helps overwhelm the enemy. Cipher's recon abilities allow him to support teammates while keeping an eye on critical areas of the map. Cipher's reconnaissance is also a little bit more suited to solo queue than Sova's recon. His ultimate gives all players fair warning that you'll be able to see the location of enemies, and his trapwires give off sound effects to help your teammates place the position of enemy players. If you want to be all-seeing, play Cipher. The biggest reason Cipher's in tier S when other observational agents sit lower is because of how straightforward his surveillance is, and how quickly Valorant players adjusted to using him for the new bunching together style of play. He's relatively easy to get to grips with while offering a lot of depth for more serious players. It's no secret, guys, Cipher's an S tier agent. We all know this. But wow, 3 agents in and we already have 2 in the S tier. Let's do Jett next. Jett is the fastest agent in the roster. Although she doesn't have the same surprise elements that Omen may have in teleportation, Jett can startle players by her quick movements and vertical abilities. The Korean duelist commands air, so she can launch herself upwards or forwards, and her passive means she can glide rather than fall to the ground. Players like to argue about how effective she is. In the right hands, Jett can be devastating, but as players learn her boost distance and work out her usual positions, she becomes less effective. If you master her, she's a great agent, but that goes for all of them. Other agents require less work and can have a bigger payoff, which comes sooner. Her ultimate Bladestorm arms her with throwing knives, which give one-shot kills with headshots and deal a moderate amount of damage to the body. While this ultimate can be devastating, it really depends on how good your aim is. All in all, Jett's abilities don't matter anywhere near as much as the player's instincts and predictions. This is a tough decision. Jett could be A tier, but maybe not quite? I think putting her in B tier is fair. Let's go ahead and do that. Jett is going in the B tier. Now let's take a look at Valorant's newest agent, Killjoy. Killjoy joined the Valorant roster at the beginning of Act 2 with a bang, bringing a whole host of new intel opportunities and traps players have to look out for. Her main benefit is that her gadgets allow her to collect information without risking her own neck. Killjoy's turret attacks targets within its sightline at any distance, distracting adversaries, doing damage, and alerting Killjoy to the enemy's position. The German genius's alarm bot debuffs enemies significantly, so your team does double damage and again signals the position of at least one enemy agent. Her nano swarm grenade does a significant amount of damage if players are caught in its radius. As it's manually activated by the player, it allows Killjoy to be hidden while engaging with enemies. Finally, Lockdown either clears a large portion of a map or makes adversaries useless for 8 seconds when the ultimate activates. Now time to decide which tier Killjoy belongs in. She has the potential to be S tier. I'm not too sure though. I think the only reason she's not an S tier is that although Killjoy is a great defense character, she's much harder to use on attack. For that, let's get her in the A tier, top of A tier. We'll do Omen next. If you like your Overwatch, then you probably already know Omen's abilities quite well. The agent, which is suspiciously like Blizzard's Reaper, has teleportation abilities. He can be everywhere and anywhere, and if played right, can be a deadly agent against a well-organized team. Omen has powerful abilities, but being unpredictable is key. Well-versed players will know standard Omen plays, so if you want to get the edge on enemy teams, you're going to want to get creative. His smokes are helpful, and his paranoia ability is great for blinding enemies hiding just around the corner. If you're new to the game, Omen is a really fun agent to try out. Omen is a defensive powerhouse, and definitely tier A when defending. Offensively though, he excels at nothing, has potentially the worst ultimate in the game, and is basically a passenger. He's not terrible, but be aware that he's only effective half the time. I think Omen belongs in the B tier. Let's go ahead and put him in there. What about Phoenix? Let's go with him next. Phoenix is the second most self-sufficient agent on the roster. He's a fiery Londoner who controls various flame abilities. Like Viper, he can put up a wall which prevents enemies' sight lines, and like Brimstone, he's got a Molotov. Although these abilities hurt other players, they also heal Phoenix. His ultimate Run It Back means the agent can run in, hopefully take down an agent or two before being teleported back to the start of the ultimate with all his health restored. This makes it a great ability for aggressive players with little risk involved. Mix these together and Phoenix is a good team player, providing he's used right, of course. For me, Phoenix has leaped from tier B to the bottom of tier A, mainly on the back of his popularity, especially amongst North American teams. Though most of what he offers can be found in other agents, Phoenix groups them all in a hyper-aggressive package. Tier B for Phoenix. Valorant fans have complained about Raze's abilities being too focused on damage in the past, which is a step away from the game's philosophy that abilities are second to guns. Riot Games has since balanced her a little since launch, so she's not as powerful as she used to be. However, Raze is still top of tier A because with a grenade, her boombot, and her blast packs, she still packs a punch. She's one of the strongest agents for delaying in Valorant. Her paint shells can completely stop a rush, leaving the enemies stranded in the open. They can be thrown short to buy you enough time to pull back, and on attack, they're very powerful at clearing out corner angles while pushing out to sight. Raze's boombot is superb for intel gathering and corner clearing, and it can be used simply as a distraction to allow you to swing out and get a shot off. Raze's most undervalued piece of utility, however, is her blast packs. These joyously versatile satchels can be thrown and detonated for a range of results. The most obvious is that you can throw these down and use them to elevate to a higher position, or to quickly push or escape an enemy. Raze needs to go into the A tier, so let's get her in there. I think this next one might upset some Reyna mains. There are so many positive arguments and things to be said about Reyna's potential and toolset. But she's also a feast or famine agent, and that means she's only as good as the player controlling her. In the hands of a highly skilled player, she's potentially S tier, but her raw utility isn't sufficient to land her any higher than C tier. That's right, guys. Reyna is our first C tier agent here. To her credit, Reyna's flashes are very powerful for peeking and pushing, and her ability to chain frags together makes her the ultimate agent for clutching out rounds. Her ultimate also makes her dominant in 1v1 battles, so in the hands of a solid fragger, she's a terrifying prospect. As all of the agents in Valorant are very well balanced, putting Reyna in C tier is by no means suggesting she's a bad pick. We've got 3 agents to go. Despite her recent nerfs, Sage is still incredibly strong. Although more Sage-less comps have begun to pop up lately, we still recommend her for consistency's sake. Sage is the closest thing Valorant has to a supporting character. She can heal herself or others during a round, effectively giving everyone a little bit more longevity in the playing field. Her ultimate ability also allows her to resurrect a teammate, making her a must-have agent in any Valorant composition. Sage isn't just a support though, as she has some of the best environmental abilities. She can wall off areas and take her enemies by surprise, or force them to give away their position by shooting it down. Her slow orbs can be great for defending points or for gathering information. Sage is probably the most diverse agent on the roster, but also the most essential. She's practically a requirement for any team going. All these factors make this an easy decision. It's no surprise, we all know Sage is S tier. Let's get her in there with Brimstone and Cipher. Now let's do Sova before we get to Viper. Sova is a pure reconnaissance agent, although his ultimate is handy for some free kills. In the right hands and with a memory bank of recon bolt lineups, you can get a read on how many enemies are stacked up on a certain site. His shock bolts are useful for clearing out traps, chipping enemies with damage, and halting pushes, and his owl drone can be used as a follow-up to the recon bolt to gain intel on any areas the bolt couldn't see. All of this makes Sova equally viable on attack and defense, and the best agent in the game for supporting a push onto the site. Finally, there's Sova's ultimate, which can be used with map pings to deliver deadly blows to key map positions like Heaven and Window. Even if you can't land a kill with the 3 arrows, you should at least be able to flush the enemy out of position so your team can clean them up. I'm going to go ahead and put Sova in the A tier. You guys agree, right? I think that's where he belongs. Now for the last agent, Viper. Viper is a situational agent, but the best situation for her is sitting on the bench. Her theme is the poison, which does provide some neat effects, but Viper's main ability is being able to block sightlines on command. Unlike any other agent, her smoke orb and smoke line is placed and then turned on and off with the press of a button. This is useful for hiding allies sneaking onto a point and confusing for the enemy team, but overall it's not particularly useful. If you've got a big old plan you want to execute, Viper's your agent. Otherwise, you're going to need to rely on someone else. Unfortunately, these skills are pretty situational. Viper's best on binds, since she can cover a lot of A and B sites, but her abilities aren't very well suited to the likes of Ascent. Even on bind, she's tier B at best. Unfortunately, this is why she's at the bottom of this list. Let's put her in tier C with Reyna. And that's our tiers, guys. Which agents would you move up or down? Let us know in the comments down below. Check out our other videos. Be sure to subscribe and turn on that bell to be notified about our latest videos.